Dad, tomorrow's dinner is canceled. Don't come. My name is Elijah Brooks, 69 years old, an African-American widower for 2 years, and I'm going to tell you a story that changed my life forever. But first, you tell me what city you're listening from, okay? And share this with anyone who needs to hear it, because what happened should never happen to any granddad. Those were the exact words my daughter Aisha said to me on the phone, just like that, dry, with no explanation, no apology, as if canceling her husband's birthday dinner were nothing. Aisha is my youngest, my spoiled one. Since she was little, she was special to me. Her mother, Ruth, may she rest in peace, always scolded me because I defended her too much. Elijah, you're going to spoil that girl, she'd say, but I couldn't help it. That child had something that melted my heart. The call came on a Thursday afternoon. I was in my small living room, watching the news like every day. My house is modest, not big or fancy, but it's mine. I paid for it with 40 years of work in construction. Every dollar I spent on that house came from these calloused hands and this aching back. When the phone rang, I thought Aisha was calling to confirm the details for tomorrow. It was Darnell's 50th birthday. Her husband, a man who, well, that's another story. Hey, baby girl. How you doing? Fine, Dad. I'm calling to let you know tomorrow's dinner is canceled. Don't come. I felt something cold run through my body. It wasn't just what she said. It was how she said it. The chill in her voice, like she was talking to a stranger. Canceled? Did something happen, Aisha? No, nothing serious. Darnell's not feeling well. Better to leave it for another day. But there was something in her voice that didn't convince me. A nervousness, a rush to end the call. And I swear I heard voices in the background, like there were people at her place. You sure, baby? If Darnell's sick, I can. No, Dad, seriously, it's fine. He just needs rest. I'll call you next week to figure it out. She hung up. I stayed there with the phone in my hand, feeling a strange emptiness in my chest. For 48 years of marriage, Ruth always told me I had a sixth sense for knowing when something was wrong. You got a hound dog nose, Eli, she'd say, laughing. And that day, my old hound dog nose told me something was off. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying the conversation, the voices I thought I heard in the background. Aisha's hurry to hang up. Darnell never got sick. He was one of those men who brag they never go to the doctor. Friday morning I woke up early, made my coffee as usual, sat in my favorite chair, and made a decision. Maybe I was crazy. Maybe I was imagining things, but I had to know the truth. I went to the market on Maple and bought everything to make a big pot of my cocoa spice mole, the dish Darnell loves the most. I spent about 500 pesos worth, money I don't have to spare, but that I've always spent gladly when it comes to family. Then I stopped by my buddy Reggie's flower shop and ordered a nice arrangement, another 300 pesos, so about 800 pesos invested in a celebration that was supposedly canceled. What's the arrangement for, man? Reggie asked while he worked the stems. For Darnell, it's his birthday. Reggie looked at me funny. I told him about the call from Aisha the day before. Told him the dinner had been canceled. Yeah, but I've got a feeling something doesn't add up. Reggie's known me 30 years. He knows when I'm dead serious. Eli, be careful. Sometimes it's better not to know some truths. But I'd already decided. I put on my white Sunday shirt, the last one Ruth ever gave me, pulled on my dress pants, and headed toward Aisha's house. While I drove my old pickup through the streets of South Atlanta, I thought about all the birthdays we'd celebrated together. Piñatas back in the day, cakes, laughter. I'd always been part of those moments. Always welcome. What had changed? I reached her neighborhood at 7 on the dot, the exact time we'd originally agreed for dinner. I parked in front of the house and immediately knew I'd been right. Cars were everywhere, lots of cars I recognized. And right then I confirmed what my heart already knew. My daughter had lied to me. I stood there in front of that house I'd helped pay for, looking at all those cars, the one belonging to my son Marcus, my buddy Raul's truck, the neighbor's sedans, even my sister Lorraine's SUV. Everyone was celebrating, everyone but me. With the flowers in one hand and the mole in the other, I walked slowly to the front door. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. The music grew louder, the laughter clearer. It was a full-on party. I stopped in front of the wooden door I myself had stained 3 years ago. When Aisha and Darnell moved into their house, I was the first to show up to help. I painted walls, fixed the plumbing, installed light fixtures. My hands built part of the happiness inside that home, and now I was outside, excluded like a stranger. I took a deep breath and knocked. Footsteps approached from inside. The music lowered a bit. I heard Aisha's voice from the other side. "Who is it?" "It's me, baby, your father." Silence. An eternity-long silence. I could hear murmurs inside, worried voices, like my arrival was a catastrophe. Finally, the door opened. Aisha appeared with a forced smile. She wore her pretty blue dress, the special occasions one. Makeup, earrings. She dressed up for a party that supposedly didn't exist. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Her voice trembled. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine, like when she was a kid and lied about her report card. "I came to wish Darnell a happy birthday. I brought mole and flowers." "But Dad, I told you it was canceled. Darnell's sick." At that moment, as if fate wanted to mock us, a loud laugh rang out from inside, the unmistakable laugh of Darnell. The same laugh I'd heard at so many family gatherings. Aisha turned beet red, completely red. "Aisha, are you going to explain what's going on?" My voice came out steadier than I intended, but the anger was rising in my throat, not so much at the lie as at the humiliation, at being made to feel like a dog kicked off the porch. "It's just, Dad, it's complicated." "Complicated? What could be complicated about my son-in-law's birthday?" From inside, I heard more voices. I recognized Marcus, my eldest, my sister Lorraine, my buddies. Everyone was in there celebrating without me. "Let me in, Aisha." "No, Dad, maybe come tomorrow," and Aisha Ruth Brooks. I used her full name like when she was little and did something wrong. "Let me in. Now." My daughter looked at me with those eyes I've known since the day she was born. Eyes that begged forgiveness before I even knew for what. She sighed and stepped aside. I entered the house. What I saw broke my heart. A complete party. Gold balloons hanging from the ceiling. A long table full of food. A chocolate cake with 50 candles. Gifts piled in a corner. And everyone there. My whole family, my closest friends. A hush fell over the room when I walked in. Darnell stood in the center of the living room with a wine glass in his hand, wearing a new shirt. He didn't look sick at all. In fact, he looked better than ever. Marcus was the first to react. He came toward me with a guilty face. "Dad, you what, son? I didn't know Aisha told you it was canceled. I thought you'd just be late like always." A lie. I never came late to family gatherings. On the contrary, I was always the first one there to help with whatever was needed. My sister Lorraine approached too, nervous. "Elijah, how are you? We weren't expecting you." "You weren't expecting me at my son-in-law's birthday?" Darnell, the birthday boy, kept quiet, sipping his wine, watching the scene like a movie he wasn't interested in. I set the flowers and mole on the main table. Everyone looked at me like I'd set down a bomb. I brought cocoa spice mole, Darnell's favorite, and flowers for the table. No one said a word. The air was so tense you could cut it with a knife. That's when I noticed something that chilled my blood. On the gift table, I saw several credit cards. My credit card was there, the one I'd lent Aisha last month for an emergency she never explained well. "Aisha, isn't that my card?" She followed my gaze and grew even more nervous. "Yes, Dad. We were going to cover everything for Darnell as a surprise, and with my card, without asking me." Silence thickened. Darnell finally spoke. "Elijah, don't worry. We'll reimburse you for everything." "Reimburse me? Reimburse what?" Aisha looked at Darnell in desperation, like begging him to shut up. "The dinner, the drinks, a few gifts," Darnell said with a smile I wanted to wipe off his face. "They excluded me from my son-in-law's birthday party, but they included my money." The words came out of my mouth like bullets, each one loaded with all the anger and disappointment I felt. Marcus tried to intervene. "Dad, it's not what you think." "If it's not what I think, then what is it, Marcus? Explain this." I pointed at the whole room, the party, the guests, the credit card on the table. We thought maybe you'd get bored. that the music would be too loud for you. I get bored at my son-in-law's birthday with my own family? My sister Lorraine tried to calm me. Elijah, don't get upset. Sit. Let's eat together. No, my voice rang firmer than it had in years. I'm not sitting. I'm not eating. And I'm not staying. I walked to the table where my credit card lay, picked it up, and slipped it into my wallet. How much did you spend? Darnell and Aisha glanced at each other. Dad, it doesn't matter. It matters, Aisha. How much? About 8,000 pesos, she muttered. 8,000. I repeated. Almost 2 months of my pension. 2 months of my money for a party I wasn't invited to. It felt like a slap. Very well, I said with a calm I barely recognized in myself. Very well. I headed to the door. Everyone stared, not knowing what to do or say. Before stepping out, I turned and looked at all of them. My daughter, my son, my sister, my buddies, Darnell. Enjoy your party, enjoy my money, and enjoy celebrating without me. I stepped out and closed the door behind me, but I didn't leave. I stood in the yard under the moonlight, staring at that house where the music and the laughter kept rolling, where my family kept celebrating like nothing had happened. And there, standing in that yard, I made the most important decision of my life. I was going to teach them a lesson they would never forget. I stayed in the yard, staring at that house where my family kept celebrating without me. The music sounded even louder now, as if my leaving had lifted a weight off their shoulders, like now they could truly enjoy themselves in peace. The anger boiled in my veins, but it wasn't blind anger, it was calculated. The same kind that kept me alive for 40 years on job sites, where if you don't think fast, a steel beam can split your skull. I pulled out my phone and called the bank. It was 8 at night, but the automated service runs 24/7. For lost or unauthorized card use, press 3. I pressed 3. Your card has been temporarily blocked. To reactivate, you'll need to present identification at your local branch. Perfect. 8,000 pesos in purchases were about to bounce. Every charge Aisha and Darnell had made would be rejected the next day. The beer, the food, the gifts, everything. But that was only the beginning. I walked to my truck, but before getting in I dialed another number. Reggie at the flower shop. Yo, Reggie, it's Eli. Remember the arrangement I ordered for Darnell? Yeah, man. What's up? You didn't like how it turned out. No, Reggie. The flowers are beautiful. I need a favor. Can you cancel the payment I made today? Cancel? Something wrong. I'll explain later. Can you do it? Since you paid by card and it was today, I can reverse it. Eli, you good? I'm perfect. Do it, please. I'll tell you everything tomorrow. I hung up and called the butcher where I'd bought the meat for the mole, then the stall where I'd bought the child's. One by one, I canceled every payment from that day. Everything I'd spent on a celebration I was denied. While I made the calls, I watched silhouettes move behind the curtains, people dancing, my family enjoying my absence. When I was done, I climbed into the truck and drove slowly home. My head, though, was moving fast, planning every move of what would come next. I reached my quiet house at 9, an honest house at least, not like that party full of lies. I sat in my favorite chair, the one Ruth gave me on my 60th birthday, and pulled out my old address book. That battered book, full of numbers and names collected over 69 years. I found the number of Mr. Franklin Harper, my lawyer, the same man who helped me with the mountain of paperwork when Ruth died. It was 9:30 p.m., but Mr. Harper is the kind of man who always answers, especially for old friends. Elijah, you all right? It's late. Franklin, I need to ask you something. You remember my will? Of course. We did it 2 years ago after Ruth passed. Why? How hard would it be to change it? He paused. Elijah, did something happen with your kids? Something happened, Franklin. Something that opened my eyes in a way I never expected. You want to come by the office tomorrow to talk it through? Yes, but I want you to know right now, I'm making big changes. Very big. All right, 10 a.m. I'll have coffee ready. I hung up and sat in the silence of my house, thinking about everything I'd built this home, the savings I scraped together peso by peso, my old truck, the few small lots I managed to buy over the years. I'd set all of it aside for my children, for Aisha and Marcus, so that when I was gone, they'd have something to start or continue their lives. But that night, after how they treated me, I remembered something Ruth told me many times that I never wanted to hear. Elijah, you make it so easy they don't value anything. Ruth always read people better than I did, even our own kids. The next morning, Saturday, I woke at 6 as always. I made my coffee, skimmed the paper, and by 9 I was ready to head to Mr. Harper's office. But first, I decided to make a stop. I drove to Aisha's house. I wanted to see what last night's cancellations had done. I wanted to see consequences. When I arrived, the scene was exactly what I expected. Darnell was in the front yard on the phone, looking desperate. Aisha stood next to him crying. I parked at the curb, rolled down my window, and watched. Darnell hung up and snapped something at Aisha. I couldn't hear the words, but his body language said they were ugly. Aisha cried harder. Then she saw me. Our eyes met through my windshield. Her face changed from sadness to surprise to fear. She said something to Darnell and pointed at my truck. He turned, saw me, and his face flushed red with anger. He marched over with heavy steps, like he wanted to swing on me. I rolled the window down the rest of the way and waited with the calm of a man who knows exactly what he's doing. "What did you do?" he shouted before he even reached the window. "Good morning, Darnell. Sleep well. Feeling better. Don't play games. Why did you cancel the payments? You made us look like fools with all the vendors." "Cancel payments? I don't know what you're talking about." My innocent face made him angrier. The meat, the flowers, everything. "They're calling me, saying charges were declined." "Oh, those. Yes, I canceled them." "Why?" "Because I realized there was an error." "What error?" "The error of thinking you wanted me as part of your family." Darnell went quiet. Aisha stepped closer, eyes swollen from crying. "Dad, can we fix this?" Her voice was broken. "Fix what, baby?" "Fix that you lied to me? That you used my money for a party I wasn't invited to? That you treated me like an inconvenience?" "Dad, it wasn't like..." "It was exactly like that." I rolled the window up, started the engine, and called out through the glass. "Don't worry. This is just the beginning." I drove to Mr. Harper's office with a smile. Phase 1 of my plan had worked perfectly, but what was coming would be better. I arrived at 10 sharp. Franklin greeted me with fresh coffee and that serious look he wore when something important was on the table. We'd known each other 20 years. He helped when I bought my house, when Ruth fell ill, and when she passed. He's the kind of man who knows life ain't always fair, but the law can sometimes balance the scales. "You look different today, Elijah, more resolved. Tell me what happened." I told him everything, from Aisha's call to last night's scene in their yard. He listened without interrupting, nodding, jotting notes on his yellow legal pad. "I get your anger," he said. "Any father would feel betrayed. But changing a will is serious. Are you sure?" "I've had all night to think. For 50 years, I worked to give my kids the best. I paid tuition, helped with houses, lent money whenever they needed it. But last night I realized they don't see me as their father. They see me as their bank." Franklin set down his pen. "What specific changes?" "Cut Aisha out completely. Everything meant for her goes to charity. An elder care home where old folks are truly valued. And Marcus depends on how he behaves in the next few days. If he defends what his sister did, he gets nothing too." Franklin's pen hovered. "That's drastic." "Life is drastic, Franklin." We spent 2 hours drafting the changes. He explained every legal detail, each implication and consequence. In the end, I signed with the same quiet certainty I had when I signed my first paycheck decades ago. "The documents will be ready next week," Franklin said, sliding the papers into a folder. "Will you tell your children?" "Not yet. First, I want to see if they can apologize sincerely, or if they're going to keep treating me like a fool." I left his office feeling lighter than I had in months. Strange, maybe, cutting my daughter out made me feel at peace. Perhaps because, for the first time in a long while, I was making decisions based on how I'm treated, not on how I hope to be treated. I drove downtown and parked outside the diner where Ruth and I used to eat Sunday breakfasts. I went in, ordered coffee and ranchero eggs, and sat at our usual table. Ms. Rosa, the waitress who's known me for years, spotted me. "Mr. Brooks, been a while since I've seen you in here alone." "I'm good, Ms. Rosa. Better than I've been in a long time." While I ate, my phone rang. "Marcus, Dad, can we talk? Aisha told me what happened." "Sure, son. Where? I can come by your place at 4. "I'll be waiting." I got home around noon and started cleaning. Not because the house was dirty, but because I needed to keep my hands busy while my mind processed everything I'd done in the last 24 hours. At 4 on the dot, Marcus knocked. He arrived alone, a good sign. Serious face, not aggressive. We sat in the same living room where he did homework as a boy. "Dad, Aisha's a mess. She hasn't stopped crying since last night." "What do you want me to do with that, son?" "Forgive her. Fix this as a family." "As a family? Were you at that party, Marcus?" He lowered his eyes. "Yes. Did you know Aisha told me it was canceled?" "No, well, yes, but I thought..." "You thought what?" "I thought it might be better this way. That lately you've been too clingy with us." Those words hurt worse than anything that happened the day before. Clingy. That's how my eldest son described a widower's wish to be close to his family. Clingy, huh? Do you have kids, Marcus? "You know I do. Would you like it if, when you're old, your children think you're clingy for wanting to be with them?" He fell silent for a long moment. "Dad, that's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant. You see my love as a nuisance." "Don't say that." "Then explain it. Explain how everyone in my family was at that party but me. Explain how you spent my money on a celebration I wasn't invited to." He tried to defend himself. "The money, that was Darnell's idea. Aisha didn't want to use your card, but he said you wouldn't notice." "So I'm so dumb I don't check my statements?" "That's not it." "Then what is it, Marcus? Because I don't understand how this family works anymore." He stood and paced, his old habit when nervous. "Dad, Darnell said it would be better to celebrate without you because you always criticize everything, because you always find something wrong with what he does." "And you agree?" "No, but I didn't want to cause trouble." "You know the difference between you and me, son." "What?" "I always defended my family, even when they were wrong. You don't defend me even when I'm right." Those words hung in the air like smoke. He sat again, smaller now, like the boy who used to crawl into my lap after nightmares. "Dad, what do you want me to do?" "Answer one question honestly." "Okay. Do you think what you did was right?" He hesitated. I saw the war in his eyes. Loyalty to his sister versus what he knew was right. "No, Dad. It wasn't right." "And what are you going to do about it?" "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing. I just needed to know if at least one of my children can recognize wrong when he sees it." He stood to leave. At the door, he turned back. "Dad, will you forgive Aisha?" "That, son, is a question only time can answer." That night, after Marcus left, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the family photos on the wall, birthdays, Christmases, graduations. Moments that once felt joyful now seemed like pictures from another man's life. I ran my fingers over Ruth's face in one of them, taken on our last anniversary, and whispered, "You were right, Ruth. They don't value what they didn't have to earn." Before bed, I made one more call to St. Mary's Senior Home, the nursing home I had decided to donate Aisha's inheritance to. "Good evening," I said when they answered. "My name is Elijah Brooks. I'd like to schedule an appointment to discuss a donation." Phase 2 of my plan was in motion. Monday morning, I woke with an unfamiliar lightness. For the first time in 2 years, since Ruth passed, I didn't feel that heavy fog that usually clung to me. I brewed my coffee, read the paper, and by 9 o'clock I was driving towards St. Mary's. The director, a woman in her early 50s named Patricia Green, greeted me warmly in her small, neat office. Photos of smiling residents covered the walls. The place smelled faintly of lavender and disinfectant, but there was peace in the air. "Mr. Brooks," she said, shaking my hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you. You mentioned on the phone that you were interested in making a donation." "Yes, ma'am. But before I commit to anything, I'd like to see how y'all run this place. I want to see how the elders are treated." Patricia smiled, the kind of smile that made you feel safe. Of course, I'd be happy to give you a tour. We walked through the entire facility. The rooms were small but clean and comfortable. The kitchen smelled of home-cooked meals. Out in the courtyard, a few elderly men played dominoes under a big oak tree. Some were reading, others chatting softly. There was life here, quiet, dignified life. How many residents do you have? I asked, watching an old man push another's wheelchair into the sunlight. We have space for 60, but right now only 40. Financial struggles, she said with a sigh. Many families can't afford full payments, and we don't have the heart to turn anyone away. And how do you manage? By faith and community support, mostly. Donations, raffles, small events, anything to keep the doors open. It was then I knew I'd made the right decision. These elders, forgotten by their families, were being treated with more respect than I'd received from my own blood. Ms. Green, I said, I want to make a significant donation, but I'll need it to remain confidential for a while. Her eyes widened slightly. How significant, Mr. Brooks? About 2 million pesos. She froze. 2 million? Mr. Brooks, that amount would change everything here. We could expand, improve facilities, hire more staff. That's exactly what I want. But as I said, it has to stay between us for now. We continued walking through the garden as she told me what they could do with the money. New beds, better medical care, more residents. As she spoke, my phone buzzed. It was Aisha. I let it ring. It rang again. I turned it off. Patricia noticed. Family troubles, Mr. Brooks? Something like that, I said quietly. That's why I'm here. We went back to her office and discussed the legal process for the donation. She said the paperwork would take a bit of time, especially for a contribution that large. Good, I said. That gives me time to settle some personal matters. She hesitated before asking, May I ask what motivated you to do this, Mr. Brooks? My family taught me a valuable lesson these past few days, I said, standing to leave. They taught me the difference between loving someone and valuing someone. When I stepped out of the nursing home, it was nearly noon. I turned my phone back on. 17 missed calls. 5 from Aisha, 8 from Marcus, 2 from my sister Lorraine, and 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. 11 WhatsApp messages too. I sat in my truck and read them one by one. Aisha, Dad, please answer. We need to talk. Marcus, Dad, Aisha's desperate. Something's gone wrong. What did you do? Lorraine, Elijah, your kids are worried sick. Call me. Aisha again. Dad, I went to the bank. They said you canceled your card. Darnell's furious. Vendors are calling us to demand payment. Marcus, Dad, Darnell came looking for you at your house. Where are you? The last one was from Aisha, sent just an hour earlier. If you don't answer, I'm going to the police. This isn't normal, Dad. I couldn't help but chuckle. Aisha had always been dramatic, but threatening the police, that was new. I dialed Marcus. He answered on the first ring. Dad, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you all morning. I'm fine, son. Just handling some business. What kind of business? Aisha says you canceled all your accounts. I didn't cancel everything. Just the card you all were using without permission. Dad, the vendors are pressuring Aisha and Darnell to pay for the party. They're threatening lawsuits. And what's that got to do with me? They assumed you were going to cover it. Well, Marcus, let me explain something. I didn't authorize those charges. I wasn't at that party. I don't owe anyone a cent. But Dad, it's 8,000 pesos. Aisha and Darnell don't have that kind of money. Then maybe they should have thought about that before spending it. There was silence on the other end. Then Marcus spoke softly. Dad, do you realize you're ruining your daughter's life? No, Marcus. I'm not ruining anything. I've just stopped fixing the messes they create. What does that mean? It means for years I've been saving them from their own decisions. Loans they never repaid. Bills I covered. Problems I solved without a thank you. But no more. You're being harsh, Dad. Harsh? You want to know what's harsh, Marcus? Working 40 years to give your kids a good life, and getting repaid by being excluded from it. I heard him sigh. What do you want us to do? Nothing. I just want you all to live with the consequences of your actions, like grown folks should. And if Aisha can't pay, if they sue her, then she'll learn that decisions have consequences. I hung up and drove home. When I arrived, there was a car parked outside. Darnell's car. He was pacing in my front yard like a caged dog. The moment he saw me, he stomped over, face tight with anger. Elijah, we need to talk. Now. Morning, Darnell. Feeling better from your sickness? Stop being smart. Are you going to help us or not? Help you with what? With the 8,000 pesos for the party. The 8,000 you spent on a party I wasn't invited to. Look, I know you're mad, but this has gone too far. The vendors are threatening to take us to court. I stepped out of my truck, walked calmly to my front door. He followed, still talking. Elijah, Aisha's in pieces. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She's sick with nerves. Oh, she's your wife, isn't she? Of course she is. Then she's your responsibility. She's your daughter too, he shouted. I turned at the door and looked him straight in the eye. You're right. She's my daughter. But she stopped being my child the moment she lied to me Friday night. You can't mean that. I've never met anything more in my life. Darnell's tone softened. Please, man, just this once. Help us out, and I swear we'll pay you back. With what, Darnell? Your paycheck, or another one of my cards. We'll pay you, I promise. You know what? I said, my voice calm and cold. I'll make you a deal. His eyes brightened. What kind of deal? Sell me your house. What? The house I help you pay for. Sell me your share. You use that money to pay your debt, and we're even. Elijah, that's our home. It was your home when I was welcome there. Now it's just a house. He stared at me, stunned. You can't be serious. Dead serious. Think it over, Darnell. It's my only offer. I went inside and shut the door, leaving him standing on my lawn. Through the window, I watched him pull out his phone, likely calling Aisha. I sat down in my chair and smiled. Phase 3 of my plan had just begun. It hadn't even been 2 hours before I heard shouting from the street. Aisha had arrived like a storm, yelling my name from the sidewalk. Dad, come out. We need to talk. Her voice was desperate, broken, like she'd been crying for hours. I peeked through the curtain. She stood outside my gate, hair messy, clothes wrinkled, pounding on the door with her fists. Darnell was behind her, trying to calm her down, but she pushed him away again and again. Dad, I know you're in there. Your truck's in the driveway, she screamed, hitting the door harder. The neighbors began peeking through their windows. Miss Jenkins from next door stepped out onto her porch to see what the commotion was about. It was a scene I never imagined I'd live to see. My daughter making a spectacle in front of the whole block. I decided to open the door before it drew even more attention. The moment I did, Aisha rushed in, sobbing and talking over herself. Dad, please, you can't do this. You can't make us sell the house. Where would we live? What's going to happen to us? Her desperation was real, but something inside me had shifted. I no longer felt the automatic urge to comfort her the way I always did. I was done being the safety net. Calm down, Aisha. Come in. Let's talk like civilized people. Darnell followed behind, looking defeated. They sat together on my living room couch, the same couch where we'd once shared Christmas mornings and family laughter. But now it felt like strangers were sitting there. Dad, Aisha began, her voice trembling. Darnell told me about your proposal. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious, Aisha. But that house is our home. It's where we plan to start a family. A family that doesn't include me, I said coldly. Aisha went silent, wiping tears with the sleeve of her blouse. Dad, the party, it was a mistake. I admit that. But it can't be serious enough for you to take our house. I don't want to take your house, Aisha. I'm offering you a way to fix the problem you created. Darnell finally spoke. Elijah, that house is worth way more than 8,000 pesos. Forcing us to sell means we'd lose a fortune. Then maybe, I said slowly. You should have thought of that before spending 8,000 on a party you couldn't afford. Aisha jumped from the couch and began pacing the room like a trapped animal. Dad, this isn't you. You've always helped us when we were in trouble. You've always been there. You're right, I said. I've always been there for you. But where were you for me when I needed my family? It was just a party, Dad. Just one stupid party. No, Aisha. It wasn't just a party. It was a lie. A betrayal. It was you telling me that I'm a burden in your life. My voice was rising, but I didn't care anymore. It was time they heard the truth I'd swallowed for years. Darnell tried to intervene. Elijah, I get you're upset. Upset. I snapped. When your team loses a game, that's upset. This is betrayal. You're exaggerating, he said. Exaggerating. I stood up and walked to the drawer where I kept my papers. I pulled out a folder and returned to the living room. I dropped a thick stack of receipts onto the coffee table. See these? 22,000 pesos I've lent or paid for you two over the last 2 years. Repairs, loans, emergencies, 25 separate times. Aisha and Darnell stared at the papers, speechless. 4,000 for your roof repairs, 8,000 for your car loan, 3,000 for new tires, another 5 for your honeymoon. You needed it, I gave it, no questions asked. And how many times have you helped me, huh? They stayed silent. I'll tell you, I said quietly. 0. Not once. Darnell tried to protest. You never asked for help. Didn't need to, I said. When Ruth died, who cleaned my house because I couldn't get out of bed? My sister Lorraine, who took me to the doctor when I thought I had heart trouble? My buddy Reggie, who brought me food when I had the flu? Miss Jenkins next door. You too. Too busy. Aisha began crying again. But these weren't tears of panic. They were tears of guilt. We didn't know, Dad. We didn't realize. Of course you didn't. I cut her off. You never asked. I turned toward the window. Outside, kids played on the street. Neighbors watered their lawns. Life went on as if nothing inside this house was crumbling. You know the difference between family and strangers, Aisha? I asked. She sniffled. What? Strangers treat me better. Lorraine had been right about one thing. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you when you need them. Darnell stood up, voice softer now. Elijah, we know we messed up. But don't destroy us over one mistake. Mistake. Mistakes are accidents, Darnell. This was deliberate. You chose to exclude me. What do you want us to do? Aisha asked quietly. I want you to take responsibility for your choices like adults. You have a week to come up with the 8,000 pesos. If you can't, I'll move forward with legal action to recover my investment in that house. Aisha grabbed my hands, trembling. Please, Dad, just one more chance. I promise we'll make it right. I looked into her eyes, the same eyes that melted my heart since the day she was born. But what I saw now wasn't true remorse. It was fear. Fear of losing comfort. Do you even understand what you did wrong, Aisha? I asked. Yes, she whispered. We hurt you. No, you excluded me. You lied to me. You used my money. But worst of all, you made a conscious decision to celebrate without me. She nodded, sobbing. I get it now, Dad. No, you don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't be here begging me to fix what you broke. You'd be telling me how you're going to fix it yourself. I opened the door and gestured toward the street. You've got 1 week. 8,000 pesos. Or I go to court. Aisha burst into tears again. Darnell stared at me with a strange mix of anger and respect. This isn't over, Elijah, he said quietly. You're right, I replied. It's just beginning. I closed the door behind them and listened to the sound of their car driving away. Then I picked up my phone and called Mr. Harper. Franklin, it's Elijah. I need you to prepare some additional documents. What kind of documents? A civil claim to recover my investment in Aisha's house. There was a long pause. Elijah, are you sure? Never been sure. Phase 4 of my plan had just begun. The next 3 days were the quietest I'd had in months. No desperate calls from Aisha asking for money. No unannounced visits from Darnell needing help fixing things. No Marcus asking if I could watch his kids. For the first time in years, my house was silent, peaceful. Thursday morning, as I sat on the porch reading the paper and sipping my coffee, someone knocked on the door. It was early, around 8. When I opened it, my sister Lorraine stood there, holding a grocery bag full of fresh produce. "Morning, Eli. Can I come in?" "Of course," I said. She walked straight to the kitchen and started unpacking tomatoes, onions, peppers, cilantro, without asking. "What are you doing, sis?" "Cooking for you. You look like you haven't eaten properly in days." She was right. I'd been living on coffee and beans lately. As she chopped vegetables, she spoke without turning around. "Aisha came to see me yesterday." I sighed. "And what did she want?" "She wanted me to talk to you, to convince you to give her another chance." "And what did you say?" Lorraine looked over her shoulder. "I told her to get a part-time job and stop bothering her daddy." I raised an eyebrow. "You said that?" "I did." She went back to chopping. "You've done enough for her. It's time she stands on her own 2 feet. Her answer surprised me. I'd expected her to defend Aisha, the way family always rallies around the one in trouble. "Lorraine, did you know about the party?" She paused her chopping and met my eyes. "Yes, I did." "And why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought Aisha explained why it was better if you didn't come." "And what was her explanation?" "That since Ruth died, you've been different. Melancholy. And Darnell didn't want his birthday turning into a sad memory." It felt like she'd slapped me. "Melancholy? That's what she said." "Yes. She said you always bring up Ruth, and it makes everyone uncomfortable." "Lorraine," I said, my voice trembling, "my wife died 2 years ago. Am I not allowed to miss her?" "Of course you are, Eli," she said gently. "But the rest of us have a right not to carry your grief all the time." Her words hit harder than Aisha's betrayal. They came from someone who'd known me 70 years, someone I trusted completely. "So everyone thinks the same," I said quietly. "That I'm a burden." "No, Eli," she sighed. "You're not a burden. You've just changed. Before, you were the fixer, the strong one. But since Ruth passed, you've needed more from us, comfort, attention, company. And that's okay, but it's been hard for them." I stood there, silent, letting her words sink in. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had changed. Maybe grief had turned me into someone they didn't recognize. Still, I asked, "Do you think I deserved what they did?" "No," she said firmly. "You didn't. But I also don't think they deserve to lose their home over it." "It's not just about the party, Lorraine. It's about years of feeling like an outsider in my own family." "Then talk to them. Explain how you feel. Don't destroy them." "I'm not destroying anyone," I said. "I'm teaching them that actions have consequences." Lorraine set the pan on the stove and turned on the burner. "Sometimes forgiveness teaches more than punishment, brother." We ate in silence. The food was delicious, but I could barely taste it. Her words echoed in my mind long after she left. That night, after Lorraine left, I sat on the porch again, watching the sun bleed orange over the rooftops. The air smelled like rain, thick and heavy, and the crickets were just starting to hum. I should have felt peace after what she said, but instead, I felt torn. Forgiveness? Was that really what they deserved? Ruth's voice echoed in my mind, like she used to whisper to me late at night when she caught me overthinking. "Eli, don't let your pride eat your kindness. There's strength and mercy too." But then, right behind that memory came another. The look on Aisha's face when she lied to me at the door, saying the dinner was canceled while my whole family laughed inside. That image still burned. Forgiveness? No, not yet. Friday morning, I drove to Franklin Harper's office to sign the final set of papers. He'd drawn up 2 separate documents, one finalizing the will change, the other initiating the claim on Aisha and Darnell's house if they didn't repay the debt by the agreed date. "You understand what this means, Elijah," Franklin said as he adjusted his glasses. "If they can't pay, you'll own half their house." "I understand perfectly," I said. He handed me a pen. I signed both papers, steady as a surgeon's hand. When it was done, Franklin closed the folder slowly. "Elijah, I've known you a long time. I've seen you mad before, at city inspectors, contractors, even your old foreman. But I've never seen you like this. This isn't just anger. This is heartbreak. I didn't respond. He was right, but I wasn't about to admit it. I just want to make sure, he continued, that when all this settles, you'll be able to look yourself in the mirror and still recognize the man you see. I will, I said, because that man finally learned to stop letting people walk over him. I left his office and drove, without direction for a while, just letting the city roll past. The barber shop where I used to take Marcus for his first haircuts, the corner store where Ruth bought her Sunday magazines, the church where we'd said goodbye to her. Every street carried a ghost. Eventually, I ended up in front of St. Mary's again. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to feel that peace I'd found there the first time. I parked and went inside. Patricia Green saw me right away. Mr. Brooks, I was just about to call you. The board reviewed your proposal. They're beyond grateful. I came to finalize everything, I said. I signed the documents this morning with my lawyer. Once the funds are transferred, I want the donation to go toward building a new recreation wing. She clasped her hands together, smiling. You have no idea what this means for us, truly. May I ask, will it be in memory of someone? Yes, I said after a pause. In memory of my wife, Ruth Brooks. She believed no one should grow old feeling forgotten. Patricia nodded softly. That's a beautiful tribute. We spent the next hour going over plans. As we walked through the garden, I watched two elderly women playing cards under the gazebo. They laughed like girls, carefree and alive. One of them looked up and waved at me. For a brief second, I imagined Ruth sitting there, smiling that gentle smile of hers. When I left St. Mary's, my heart felt lighter, but only slightly. That night, the phone rang again. Aisha. I stared at it for a long moment before answering. Dad, her voice was barely a whisper. I was wondering when you'd call, I said. We got your letter. Good. Then you know the deadline. Yes, she said, sniffling. But we can't come up with that kind of money in a week. Darnell's tried everything, selling his tools, asking friends, but no one can lend us that much. Then maybe it's time to make some hard choices. Dad, please. You don't understand. If we lose the house, we'll have nowhere to go. You can always rent. On what money? We're barely paying the bills as it is. I said nothing. I could hear her breathing hard on the other end, fighting back tears. Dad, if Mom were here, she'd tell you to forgive us. That hit me like a knife. For the first time since this whole thing started, my throat tightened. You don't get to use your mother to clean up your mess, I said finally. You didn't care what she would have wanted when you lied to me. Don't pretend to care now. She started sobbing. Dad, I'm sorry. I swear I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. Maybe not, I said softly. But you did. Can't we start over? Please, Dad. I hesitated. For a brief moment, I almost said yes. But then I remembered Franklin's words, Lorraine's warning, the years of quiet disappointment. I'm not ready to start over, I said. You have 3 more days. Then I hung up. The next 2 days passed in silence. No calls, no knocks. I thought maybe they'd finally accepted what was coming. But Sunday afternoon, as I was watering my plants, a police car pulled up in front of my house. 2 officers stepped out, one older, one young and nervous looking. The older one tipped his hat politely. Mr. Elijah Brooks? That's me. Sir, we received a complaint from your daughter, Mrs. Aisha Brooks. She claims you're threatening her family and attempting to take their property through coercion. I almost laughed. Coercion? That's a new one. Mind if we come in and talk? Go ahead. They stepped inside, looking around my small, tidy living room. The older officer spoke first. Your daughter says you've been demanding 8,000 pesos from her under threat of seizing her home. I'm not demanding anything. I'm reclaiming money that was stolen from me, I said, handing him a copy of the receipts and the signed agreement from Franklin. Everything's legal. I even have a lawyer handling it. The officer looked through the papers, then nodded. These look legitimate. He gave a faint smile. Between you and me, sir, we see a lot of family disputes like this. Usually it's just hurt feelings. I'd suggest try and talk it out before it gets worse. I tried talking, I said. They lied. So now I'm letting the law talk. He gave me a sympathetic look. Understood. We'll mark this as a civil matter, not a criminal one. Just be careful. Family fights have a way of getting ugly. After they left, I stood by the window watching their car disappear down the street. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. That night, I dreamed of Ruth again. We were sitting on the porch, just like always. She was knitting something in her lap, humming softly. I asked her, "Did I go too far?" She looked up at me with that patient smile of hers. "You went as far as you needed to, Eli, but don't stay there." When I woke up, the dream clung to me like morning fog. I went to the kitchen, made coffee, and sat at the table thinking about what she'd said. Don't stay there. By noon, I'd made a decision. I drove to Aisha's house. The gate was open, the lawn unkempt, toys scattered on the porch even though they didn't have kids yet. I knocked once. Darnell answered. His eyes were bloodshot, his face pale. "Elijah," he muttered, surprised. "Is Aisha home?" "She's inside. She's been sick all morning." I stepped into the living room. It was messy, boxes half-packed, papers everywhere. Aisha sat on the couch, clutching a blanket. She looked small, fragile even. "Dad," she whispered. I didn't speak for a moment. I just looked at her, at the exhaustion in her eyes, at Darnell standing behind her like a shadow. "You don't have the money, do you?" I asked quietly. She shook her head. "No," I nodded slowly. "All right. Then listen carefully. I'm not taking your house. You'll keep it." Her eyes widened. "What?" I said, "You'll keep it. But there's a condition." "What condition?" "You're going to pay me back, every peso, but not with money. You're going to pay me with time." They looked at each other, confused. "I'm volunteering at St. Mary's Senior Home. You'll both come with me every weekend for the next 6 months. You'll help clean, cook, whatever they need. You'll learn what it means to respect the people who came before you." Aisha covered her mouth, tears spilling down. "Dad, really?" "Really," I said. "It's not forgiveness, not yet, but it's a start." And for the first time in months, when I looked at my daughter, I didn't feel anger. I felt hope. A month later, the first Saturday of their volunteering arrived. The morning was clear and cool, sunlight falling in thin stripes through the oaks that lined St. Mary's parking lot. I got there early, as always, wearing my old denim jacket and carrying a box of cleaning supplies. Aisha and Darnell's car pulled in 10 minutes late. I watched them step out slowly, awkwardly, both dressed neatly but looking out of place, like kids on their first day of school. "Morning," I said when they approached. "Morning, Dad," Aisha murmured, eyes lowered. Darnell gave a small nod. Patricia Green was waiting for us at the entrance. "Mr. Brooks," she greeted with her usual warmth. "And these must be the helpers you mentioned." "Yes, ma'am. This is my daughter Aisha and her husband Darnell." Patricia smiled kindly. "Welcome to St. Mary's. We're happy to have you." Inside, the air was filled with the faint scent of disinfectant and something sweet, cinnamon bread from the kitchen. Patricia led us down the hall, introducing them to the residents as we passed. "This is Mrs. Alvarez," she said, pointing to a tiny woman with bright eyes who was knitting by the window. "And that's Mr. Carter. He's 92 and still beats everyone at chess." Aisha smiled politely, but I could see how uneasy she felt. Darnell looked even more uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Patricia handed us a list of chores: clean the recreation room, help serve lunch, and spend an hour talking to the residents who didn't get visitors. "You don't have to do everything perfectly," Patricia said gently. "Just be kind." "Kindness we can manage," I said. We started in the recreation room. The air smelled like old wood and furniture polish. I gave Darnell a broom and Aisha a dust cloth. She looked at me as if to ask, "Do we really have to do this?" "Yes," I said quietly. "We really do." For the first half hour, no one spoke. Just the sound of sweeping, the hum of the air conditioner, and the occasional cough from down the hall. But after a while, Aisha began to relax. She wiped down shelves, humming softly to herself, an old tune Ruth used to sing. When we finished cleaning, Patricia asked if we'd help in the dining room. The lunch rush was starting. Plates of soup and sandwiches needed to be served. Aisha carried trays to the tables, while Darnell poured juice. I joined Mr. Carter at his usual spot by the window. "Who are the young folks?" he asked, glancing at Aisha. "My daughter and her husband." "Good," he said with a grin. "About time you brought some youth in here. We old folks need fresh ears for our stories." He wasn't wrong. The residents loved having visitors. Before long, Aisha was sitting beside Mrs. Alvarez, helping her knit, and Darnell was laughing with a group of men playing dominoes. The awkwardness faded little by little, replaced by something gentler, something real. At one point, I caught Aisha watching an old man struggle to open a ketchup packet. She rushed over to help, her expression tender, almost maternal. I saw the reflection of Ruth in that moment, the same softness, the same patience. By the end of the day, she came to me with flushed cheeks and tired eyes. "Dad," she said, "I didn't expect to like this." "You did good today," I said simply. "I forgot how nice it feels to just help someone." I nodded. "That's what your mother used to say." Darnell came over, wiping his hands on a towel. "Mr. Brooks, I gotta admit, I thought this would be torture. But it's humbling. These folks have been through hell, and they still smile." "Yeah," I said. "They've learned what matters." When we left that afternoon, Aisha hugged me tightly for the first time in months. "See you next weekend?" she asked. "I'll be here." And she was. The next Saturday, and the one after that, and every weekend for 6 months. Over time, the bitterness between us began to thaw. We never sat down for some big tearful reconciliation. It wasn't that kind of healing. It came in small ways. The way Aisha started calling me on Thursdays to ask about my week. How Darnell began fixing things around my house without being asked. How, one Sunday, they brought me a home-cooked meal instead of me always cooking for them. One weekend in November, near the end of their volunteer period, Patricia asked Aisha to help organize a small fall festival for the residents. She threw herself into it completely. Decorations, music, snacks. Darnell built a wooden photo booth out of scrap lumber. On the day of the event, the courtyard at St. Mary's was alive with laughter and the smell of apple pie. Aisha wore a bright yellow dress, just like the ones Ruth loved. She moved from table to table, making sure everyone had something to eat. Mr. Carter found me sitting by the fountain, sipping lemonade. "Your girl's got her mother's spirit," he said. "Yeah," I replied, smiling faintly. "She just needed to remember where it came from." Later, Aisha came and sat beside me. "You know," she said, "Mom would have loved this place." "She would," I agreed. "She'd probably be here bossing everyone around." We laughed quietly together, and for the first time, the sound didn't feel forced. "I've been thinking," Aisha said after a while, "about what you said, about valuing people. I didn't really understand it until now. These folks, they have no one, and yet they still have more grace than I did." "You've learned something then." She nodded. "More than I thought I could." She hesitated. "Dad, I can't undo what I did. But I want you to know, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." I looked at her for a long moment, then reached out and took her hand. That's all I needed to hear. When the festival ended and the last of the residents were wheeled back inside, Patricia came over and hugged Aisha. "You've been a blessing to us, dear. The new recreation wing should be finished in a few months, and we're naming it after your mother, the Ruth Brooks Hall." Aisha's eyes filled with tears. "You're naming it after Mom?" "Yes," Patricia said, smiling at me. "It was your father's wish." Aisha turned to me, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Thank you, Dad." "I didn't do it for thanks," I said. "I did it because your mother believed in second chances." That evening, back at my house, Aisha and Darnell stayed for dinner. It was simple: fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and cornbread, the kind Ruth used to make. We ate together at the small kitchen table, the air filled with easy conversation. No tension, no guilt, just family. After dinner, Aisha helped wash dishes, while Darnell sat with me on the porch. The night air was cool, stars blinking faintly above the rooftops. "Mr. Brooks," he said after a long silence, "I owe you an apology too. I've been a fool. You gave us everything, and I treated you like a burden. I don't deserve your forgiveness." I looked at him carefully. "You're right. You don't. But I'm giving it anyway." He laughed quietly, relief in his voice. "Thank you, sir. You've done right by Aisha these last few months," I said. "Keep it that way." He nodded. "I will." When they left that night, Aisha hugged me again, longer than before. "See you next weekend, Dad." After they drove off, I sat on the porch for a long time, watching the empty street. The silence didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt peaceful. Weeks passed. Winter crept in slowly, bringing crisp air and the smell of pine. The construction at St. Mary's finished in late December. The new Ruth Brooks Hall was beautiful, sunlit windows, fresh paint, a big sign out front that read, "A place built by love for love." At the grand opening, Patricia invited me to say a few words. I stood at the podium, looking out at the residents, the staff, and my family sitting in the front row. Aisha held Darnell's hand tightly, eyes glistening with pride. "I built houses most of my life," I began, my voice shaking slightly. "I built walls, roofs, porches, but my wife, Ruth, she built people. She built kindness, community, and love. This hall isn't just for her. It's for everyone who's ever felt forgotten. Because love, when it's real, never gets old." Applause filled the room. Afterward, Aisha came up to me and said, "Dad, you were right about something." "What's that?" "Family isn't about who's perfect. It's about who stays. Thank you for staying." I smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt Ruth beside me, her warmth in the air, her pride in my chest. That night back home, I sat on the porch under the stars and whispered, "We're okay now, Ruth. You can rest easy." And for the first time since she'd gone, I truly believed she did.